1 second.
Testing.
So waiting for my Vanna White to give me a thumbs up whether or not she can hear us or not. We're going to pause for 1 second. No, now you can hear us. Perfect. All right. So we just said a whole bunch.
You missed all the nuggets. You missed all the good nuggets.
We'll try to redo this. We actually have a new fancy sign. Want to shout out to Jordan on our team for getting this put together. We're now officially a LinkedIn Live series because we have a sign. So going in, I'm Ryan. It's my 7th one. This is the seventh version or 7th episode of I almost said 7th Heaven. This is not 7th Heaven. This is Sales Hacks, completely different genre. Joined by Brandon and Taylor. You guys want to do a quick introduction again?
Yeah, sure. Brandyn Le-Lewis, Director of Sales over here on the West Coast. Been with Xactly 5.5 years, and I'm coming up on an anniversary as a sales leader. So very excited to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Taylor Wilding, RVP of Sales for our commercial and growth segments across North America. Been here for 4 years. Started out as an individual contributor and have moved into a director and now this RVP role. Just excited to be here and hit this index card challenge.
Yeah. So today we're going to be doing the TikTok, Instagram,
Instacart customer
index card challenge. As always, though, if anybody has any questions in the chat, we really want to get engagement. So please feel free to drop those in there. I'm monitoring what's happening in the chat. So without further ado, who wants to go first?
I'll take it.
Okay. Pick a letter.
Ryan, give me a letter B.
B. Okay.
For Brandon.
In your opinion, why is this one of the hardest selling environments?
Oh, I picked a good one. I think across the board, pipeline is a lot lower than it used to be, maybe in the last couple of years. And I think there's probably some downstream trickle effects from COVID, and people got a little bit more used to Zoom and not being in person. And I think a lot of maybe what was really effective is like having events and customer events and going on site to meetings and things like that. And a lot of that has kind of gone away, and you've had to really shift. And I think whenever you deal with change is hard. And so we're still trying to keep up with it.
Yeah, the growth at all cost mentality is yesteryear, right? Like we don't see that anymore. There's the element of profitability that people are so focused on, rule of 40, all that kind of good stuff that definitely plays a factor. And I think that with that, the workforces are smaller, and so people are looking to do more with less type of a scenario and trying to navigate those waters and adapt to the new reality of things. But also the way that people are making decisions, right? We're not seeing a single person make a decision at an organization. Yeah. There's 6, 7 people that are making decisions that most people don't get access to all of them.
Yeah. I mean, I think everything you guys said, spot on. It's also too, I think it's who you're selling to, right? Before, CFO may not have needed to be engaged. Now it's like, you have to get to the CFO. You have to get up to that C-level executive, the executive sponsor, start selling value, why the solution matters, what's the cost of inaction, things like that. Since Brandon, you chose it, why don't you pick who should go next, and then we'll pick a letter.
Well, I'll give it to you then.
We'll go G.
Ooh.
Got 2 of those in my name, so we'll go G.
G. If you have a C player with potential, what are some tactics to get them to an A?
Whoa. Well, we did it with both of you guys, so I think that's
it's a good starting
point.
Hey,
C's get degrees, guys.
I mean, man, that's a good one. I think it goes back around coaching. It's about, if you see the potential, how do you go in there and really, not to be cliche, but untap that potential, right? Setting them up for success, going in and making sure, hey, you're going into this meeting with XYZ people. What's your role? What do you want to get out of it? How are you going to progress the deal, or how are you going to get to the no, right? Because I think a lot of time, the biggest thing that goes from a C-level player to an A-level player, and jumping kind of, I know there's a B in between, but is getting to that no quickly, right? Because the C-levels will just go in and they'll spend all this time. Hey, you need a demo. You need this call. You need that call. Okay, yeah. Always running, trying to get the yes, instead of taking a step back and getting the no, right? No, you can't have access to this person. No, we don't have, like, whatever that may be. That's what takes somebody from, a C level to an A level. And as a leader, encouraging them or enabling them to figure that out quicker, right? How do you win quick? How do you lose quick?
Mm-hmm.
That's, I think, one of the biggest things that's a C going from C to A really is difficult.
I like that. I think a lot of it comes down to data too, because then you could see a little bit of why they might be, in the position they're at. Are they a C because of low conversion rates, like you were talking about, or are their sales cycles super long and drawn out? Well, then you got a coaching moment, right? So trying to understand that person and what it is that's motivating them, and then structuring your training around like how you can get the most out of them.
Yeah, I think that's to that point, like self-reflection, right? Being able to see yourself and be realistic with yourself as a seller. If you can get a C player to recognize that, then that helps them move into an A player as well, because then they understand where their areas of opportunity lie in order to improve. And if they don't understand it, it's hard to coach to that.
Yeah.
Yep.
You talk a lot about skill versus will. I mean, you've mentioned that in the past, and I kind of rings true whenever I'm thinking about how are we doing this and how are we going about our training, right? Is it a skill gap? Well, we can work on that. Is it a will gap? Well, then what's going on? Is there something going on at home? Are they just not focused? Can we bring them back to that area? So that's the thing that kind of rings true, I think.
Well, and I think too, there's also this notion of like, when you look at a seller, there's certain elements, right? Are you really good at prospecting? Are you really good at progressing deals? Are you really good at closing, right? A C player may be focused and really good at going and finding the deal. They lack the other two. So you have to you have to go in and say, which aspect of these do they need the most help in? And then as a leader, you're coaching to that. So
I like the will gap. We've got a Will on our team.
We do have a Will on our team.
yeah.
Shout out Will, new dad, baby Georgia.
Oh, new dad.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
I think Taylor's up. Pick a letter.
Let's go with D.
All right. How are you managing your sales forecast to maintain personal credibility as a sales leader?
This is a great question for you.
This is a great question. Accountability is at the top of everyone's mind these days.
Yeah.
I mean, we are fortunate in the fact that we offer a solution that we eat, sleep, and breathe on a daily basis, right? So it's easy to be passionate about it. Xactly forecasting allows us to see what that looks like and give us, like you talked about data before. How do we see the data? How do we make sense of it? How do we action it, right? And that's where the accountability comes into play is how do you action what you see in front of you from a data perspective in order to improve your win rates and improve your approach in general. So the accountability piece, once again, comes down to the information you put in, and then what are you doing with that information in order to course correct or make some data-driven decisions. That's really at the crux of it. Data is only a part of the story, though. So how do you take that data and make sense of it and put it to play?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's your brand, right? Because it's going in and saying, hey, I am calling this number, right? So your brand is on the line every time you call a number. Because if you go in saying, hey, as a rep, I'm going to do $500,000 this quarter, and then the next week you're like, I'm going to do 450. And then the next week, and it progressively goes, okay, well, what are you actually going to do? How do you build that brand, that credibility, to your point of going in and ensuring that you're calling the right number, you're calling the ball? Because the last thing, especially as you go up the management ranks and you have those leaf levels, you want predictability. You want people that you can trust. And that's the key thing is you got to be able to trust what the reps are calling, because it rolls up. If you have, and I've said this to you guys, and I know we've said it to the team, if you have 100 reps and everybody drops their call by 20K, like that adds up to the individual rep. That doesn't really matter to them. 20K is not very big, but when you extrapolate that out, that's a huge impact to the business. So it's really building your brand that you can call the ball.
Yeah. We were talking about personal brand last night, weren't we? The three of us?
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe all right. You guys don't remember the
I was trying to remember it.
All right.
No.
Good talk.
A lot of conversations,
All right.
many books.
Many books.
All right. Brandon,
My turn?
Yeah.
I'll go E.
Ooh, coming back. When deals are stalling, what are 3 things that you can do to jumpstart it? 3 things.
3 things that jumpstart it. I think it's really, if we're talking about customer focus, which you mentioned earlier, if you bring it back to that, why did this customer care about this project? Why is it important to them? And you really get to the crux of not just maybe this person who's hands-on with a project or hands-on with that pain, but how do you tie it to the bigger company objective? If you tie it to that, surface that to the people that you've been working with, and then just plainly ask them, like, where should we go from here? Is this still important to you? I've seen that work. I've seen that at least get some type of response, and then that way you're not just sitting there in the dark hoping that's going to come back.
How many things was that?
Maybe it was 4. Who
maybe,
knows?
yeah. I mean, I think that there's a few things, right? I was always taught back in my day from one of the reps that used to work here, people buy from people, right? And so if you look at that as point number 1, people buy from people. They don't want to go and just buy. It's not a transactional sale. You have to build a relationship, right? So how do you engage if a deal's stuck? Either A, you're not selling at the right level. B, you haven't built up your brand, your credibility with the customer to help progress the deal, or there's no value that they're seeing. This all ties back into people buy from people. You have to solve that first. You have to go create a champion, somebody that'll give you inside detail to what's actually happening. Because that's, once again, what makes us, going back to the first question, go from a C player to an A player is how do you build that relationship? Because that's always key. The second one is, how are you driving urgency, right? How are you going in and saying, this is the cost? I feel like a broken record here. This is the cost of inaction, right? If you don't do this in the next month, here's what the potential impact is to the business, whether you don't get to buy XYZ software, you don't get this business efficiency, the board doesn't, is looking for Y, and you won't be able to deliver it, whatever that may be. And then the third one is it's self-reflection, right? Because you have to be able to go in and look to say, what am I not as a seller? What am I not doing in the deal to get it to progress? It's stalling. What can I be doing? What have I done? Where are the gaps, right? We talk a lot about, planning for the future, looking out not just today, but tomorrow, a year from now. It's the same thing in the deal. As you go through and you have demos, you have discovery, all those different things that happen, you have to plan out your attack, right? Make your plan, and then you work your plan. And if you don't have a plan and you're kind of flying by the hip, chances are it's going to stall out because you don't know where you're going. It's like if you were to go before the iPhone and, car navigation. I remember actually somebody told me I was old the other day because I referenced this, a map book. You guys know
Thomas guy?
Thomas guy.
Yeah. Right.
Good
or
Thomas.
You had to go in, you had to look up, okay, I'm going from point A to point B. I have to go to page 64, 78, 37, like whatever that is, map out my route, right? I can't just go drive directionally to an area that I've never been without knowing how to get there. And I think that's why, mutual action plans are key. Yeah. It's not so much to say, well, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. It's, am I doing everything as a seller? And as from the buying perspective, what needs to happen to get this across the line?
Yeah. Well, the idea of stalling, right? The mutual action plan, I think, is critical that, some people kind of forget. Becomes a hopeful action plan. There's hoping that this is the way that it's going to go. Whereas you need to get agreement on, here are the steps that we're going to take. This is when we're going to take these steps. And then, like you said, search for the no. Why wouldn't we be able to do this at this time?
That's what I was going to say.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
All right. Next one.
Which is it? I think I just asked you for a card.
Yeah, I'll go. Let's go.
This is like, did you look at these?
No, this is all. Of course not.
Ooh. What is your personal motivation?
Ooh. My personal motivation is, well, like I said, we're passionate about what it is that we're offering, right? That's from a sales perspective. My motivation in general, though, is career progression. I'm never satisfied with anything that I ever do. There's always some sort of like next level up leveling that we can do, right? I think it's been no secret of the fact that I played baseball in my previous life, and that's where you're always looking to achieve more, right? The minor leagues are a grind. I never made it to that ultimate step of the big leagues, but here in sales now, like my motivation is figuring out a way to get to the top. I'm not looking to take your job, so don't worry about that. That's not my MO.
Hey, if you want it, I mean.
But that's my motivation, is continuously striving to improve on a daily basis.
And if your wife's work watching,
yeah,
your wife and your kids are obviously a personal motivator as well. Just throw that out there.
1% better every day.
Yeah.
1% better every day. That's what
it's for that. Yeah, it's for that.
That's your why. That's your why.
So she can post nice pictures of her outfits and things like that. Yeah, of course.
Taylor's a saying that if you get 1% better every day, you'd be 365% better by the end of the year.
I don't think that's quite how
That's
math.
good math.
That's
That is
math. The
math.
math isn't quite mathing, as someone says, but yeah.
What about you, Brandon?
I mean, I think if you're thinking about personal life, yeah, I got a little guy at home. He's 2 and 3 months now, and we
You
actually
said little?
He is little for now.
Not for a 2-year-old.
He's pretty strong. We actually are expecting.
Oh,
Yeah.
whoa.
Drop the bomb on there. But
Dang.
yeah, we're expecting. So number 2 is coming. So
Oh my God.
yeah, so that's a big personal motivation for me.
I can tell you, stop at 2, 3.
Yeah. Man,
I
congrats.
see what you and Mitch are
That's
doing,
good
and
stuff.
I don't want to have
That's great,
to,
buddy.
How about them apples?
Yeah,
So you're really going to start selling?
I really do. Yeah. So all of this, I'm taking all of this in. I need to get 2% better every day, not 1.
Wow.
I mean, Taylor, are you any
No expectations
no,
here.
No, okay.
New
Just turned
No,
turned
no, we've got it.
just turned into Maury real quick here.
You are not the father.
So, all right, Taylor, pick again.
Okay, we'll go with Jay. Getting thumbs up all
All
over the
right.
place. People running in saying congrats to Brandon.
How do you work with RevOps teams
Ooh.
to optimize the performance of salespeople? Share some of the latest tips and tricks.
Shout out Annie and Bailey.
Banny.
And
Yeah,
Sally.
Annie and Sally.
Yeah.
I mean, we had an instance of that earlier this week, right? They updated our forecasting instance, and they have a pull forwards tab right there for all the reps, right? So how do we keep tabs on some of those forward-looking deals, and how do we make sure that we have eyes on those, and they're not just parked there for the sake of being parked there, and we're working them. So I think we've got a really good collaborative environment, and it's been really helpful for us this year. And we get to hear their perspective on like, this is important data that you should be incorporating into your sales cycle. And when we're looking at deals and challenging our reps and trying to figure out what is the no, what could stop this from happening, all that gets incorporated in the tool, which is really helpful for me.
Yeah, the nice part too is our RevOps team came from other places, right? Which they love to tell us about where they came from and the things that they learned in those places that they can apply to our business as well. That helps. So different outside perspectives.
Yep.
And the second set of eyes, third set of eyes, whatever it may be, to kind of do sanity checks is where I see it.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I love to do is when Bailey goes out of office, I'll go.
She doesn't do that.
I'll pilot software and be like, "Oh, by the way, I think we're gonna buy this."
Yeah.
So no,
But she doesn't go out of office.
but I think that there's a reason too. It's not called sales ops anymore. It's called RevOps, right? Because you're looking at you want to look at revenues, not just the actual transactional sale. It's what are the terms that are happening? What's the reporting? What's the negotiations that need to happen? They're seeing it from this macro level where the reps are so focused on the micro, what's happening in my swim lane, and they can provide guidance and different feedback of what's happening organizationally. So I think that's good. I was hoping we had the sound effects like David Letterman where I could throw maybe next time, Jordan.
Get ad effects.
Yeah. David Letterman, you've aged yourself twice on this call.
I know.
Greatest interviewer, maybe. I think he's pretty good.
You think Letterman's the greatest interviewer like of all time?
I think he's up there.
Really?
You don't think so? I like his questions.
Can't. Yeah.
I mean, I think Joe Rogan's probably the best interview of all time.
Joe Rogan's pretty good, I guess.
But
All right.
all right, check in the chat. Please, once again, we have cards here, but if there's anything that you want to ask, get feedback on, please put it in the chat. We're monitoring that. Why don't I pick one?
Boxers or briefs?
It's TMI.
Okay.
Why not both?
Boxer briefs.
Boxer briefs.
Yeah.
Not both on top
And
of
no,
each other.
I'm going to answer because I don't need anybody posting later that's like tidy whities,
Well,
it's definitely the briefs.
to that point though, have you ever wondered why superheroes wear their underwear outside their clothes, like Batman and Superman?
This sounds like a conversation you had with your sons the other day in the car, but
Perhaps. Perhaps. They had good answers. You guys apparently have nothing.
I think it's for color on the page back in the printing days.
Ooh. Oh.
oh, wow. You've
thought about this.
Yeah, this is the first time.
I like to draw.
we've
I like
never-
to draw. I thought about this stuff.
Okay.
All right. Let's go C.
C. Given the tough sales environment, is your approach to deals changing? What are you doing in a challenging market to make it easier for your customers?
Yes, times are changing. I think we're seeing people not want to take risks, and not so much when it comes to software, but to legal terms, right? So we're seeing. I mean, and I can't speak for everyone out there, but you're seeing more people question, "Hey, what's uncapped liability. We want the vendor to take all the risk. We want to make sure that you're having all this data protection and privacy, which we obviously have, but they want it even to the nth degree. Yeah. So I definitely think times are changing. With that approach, though, it goes back to how do you educate the rep onto getting ahead of those things, right? A good rep will go into a contract negotiation and say, hey, 2 things I can't have: uncapped liabilities, termination for convenience. Other than that, we can come to terms. Those are my two showstoppers. And when you set those proper expectations, it can help ease that sales cycle. And then I think you have this notion of, the business wants, and by business, I mean like the individual contributors, managers, director levels, they want to create efficiency. Their jobs at times can be challenging, and they don't want to do these manual processes anymore. And then you have the C levels that are looking at from a budgetary perspective. Well, I don't care how much time you spend. I don't want to add this incremental cost, right? So what can we do in the interim? So how do you get that value proposition back to the C level?
Yeah, and I think that goes back to the business case needing to be justified, right? And if you're relying on your champion or whoever it is that you're working with to sell your solution internally, it doesn't seem to go very well, right? So getting access earlier on to those economic buyers seems to be when we're seeing the least path of resistance to getting deals across the line. Yeah. I'm sure that people out there are seeing other things depending on their industry or their offering, but for what we're seeing and what we're talking about with our customers too, is that that's the biggest challenge, is getting access to the economic buyer. So how do you make it compelling enough early on to get to the economic buyer by, once again, going back to selling with value and actually having a business case buttoned up before, or at least hypothesized before you get to that point of a.
No, I think that's big on making it easier for your customer, right? I think Griff Coyle shared the article about the CFO is going to grill your champion. So how do you make sure that they're prepped, they have everything that they need from a business case justification, and you've armed them with all the salient points around why this should be happening now versus pushed out later. And I think if you're doing it well, then you're one of those A players.
Yeah.
Griff would be an entertaining guy to have on one of these.
So I don't think from a legal perspective.
Oh, he's not allowed.
We would be able to.
I think he would be. Yeah. He'd be good.
Maybe we can do like a Netflix uncensored version, but.
I think he's standing up right now with his hands up. I think he's flustered after hearing that.
All right. Why don't I go F?
F. Share 2 characteristics of the most successful salespeople and why.
Grit and hunger for knowledge. You're talking about being 1% better every day.
Oh, wow.
I think that's a big one for sellers.
I like the grit one.
I love grit. I stole that, truthfully.
I thought you just made it up right now.
No, I definitely stole that. I've heard it from different sales leaders, and I've heard it in podcasts. And I think it really exemplifies someone. Like, you can't just take no, and you got to be chasing a no. And so there's a lot of people who say like, oh, sales, you deal with so much rejection. Well, it's not always just rejection for rejection's sake. You're trying to figure out if there is a fit, and you got to chase that. And you can't just give up at the first instant of, maybe a challenge or an obstacle. You got to get creative and find ways around it. And I think the best sellers, they find that type of that type of way.
Right. It's not a cookie cutter approach, right? No. Every buyer is different. Everything. There's always something that's around the corner that you might not be thinking about. If you don't have the grit to try to find it out and then learn from it and apply it to the next one to see if it applies as well, then you're gonna be up a creek.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that if you look at the challenger sales methodology, there's all these different ones, and there's good and bad. I always go back to I want a lone wolf, but I want a lone wolf that's coachable. Mm-hmm. Right. And that can, a wolf still has a pack. They may be majority on their own. I think that that's something that you almost want in a sales rep, because you want somebody that when they hear no, that's what really fires them up. Right. Because then they're like, no, you don't get to tell me no. I'm going to tell you no, that I don't want to sell to you.
Right.
You're the buyer. I'm the seller. This is why you need to buy from me. Here's what we need to do. So I think it's you have to have this, mental fortitude of being able to say, I heard no, but that doesn't actually matter because you're going to buy from me. So I think that and I don't know how to, put that into words, what type of person that is or what quality or trait, but you got to have that. The second piece, I think, is, how do you have an inquisitive nature? Because somebody who just doesn't ask questions generally doesn't make a good seller.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to understand what's happening within a sales cycle. In interviewing, that's why, I take the approach when I do interviews, I don't ask questions anymore. Tell me about, your biggest deal. It's like, well, that's a layup question. You won the deal. Like, oh, well, I sold to the CEO, and like, okay, tell me about, what hobbies do you like? Because I want to start getting out in the interview process. What's your actual personality? What makes you tick? What's your, motivation? And then see what questions they come back with as well, right? Because if I can build rapport with you in 2 minutes, I want to see that you can do the same with me. That's how you're going to talk to your customers. You're going to pick up the phone, get somebody on the phone and say, oh, hey, how's the weather in, Atlanta today? And they're going to, oh, it's, there's thunderstorms and rain. Okay. That's not really building a rapport. It's like, oh, I just went camping. Oh, that's crazy. So did I, it's those types of things that you got to find in a good seller.
On the flip side of that, I do like asking the question, what was your biggest loss? And trying to figure out if they have that introspection to have learned from it, because sales is going to teach you a lot of lessons, right? So if you're not open to figuring out what could you have done better, you can't control everything, but what can you control and where could you have made some improvements? I think that goes a long way of making that jump from being a C or a B player to an A player and just being successful overall.
Yep. Yeah, you got to be wired a little bit different, right? I mean, I talked to the 4 directors on my team about a week and a half ago that, like, if you're not juiced up right now at the end of a quarter and you're not thriving or thinking about thriving in this situation, like, you're probably in the wrong role. Like, this is where you got to get scrappy and have some fun with it at the same time, because the challenge is in front of you. If you don't embrace that, there's no way you're going to succeed in these types of roles.
Embrace the grind, as they say.
Yep.
All right, Brandon.
Grit, grind.
Quick grind.
Great grind.
There's another G. You could do like
Yeah.
dodgeball, right? Dip, dive, dodge. We'll go A.
Go egg. Share how you'd motivate an individual rep that used to be a top performer but is struggling this quarter.
Kind of a similar question as before, right? I think figuring out why they're struggling. Is it conversions? Is it effort? Is it talk track? And then trying to get down to that, right? And it might be different every single time, but I think circumstance around what deals they're working on, where they're at currently in their career, where they're at currently in life, I think that's an important thing to consider when you're trying to have that tough conversation.
I think too, it's going back and understanding what they did to be successful previously, right? Like replicating that, but at the same time, we talked about that things are changing. So is what you did before not working now? I think it's Chris Cabrera, our CEO and founder, that always says, like, you have to continuously reinvent yourself, right? He talks about that quite a bit. Every couple of months or years, you got to, maybe not months, that's a little aggressive, but you got to reinvent yourself. If you've had success in the past, you've got to understand what you did well, but then also what's changed, and then how do you apply, some learnings to that and go make adjustments. I think adjustments is the key.
Well, I mean, not to compare selling to sports.
There's not very many parallels.
There's not very many, but if you think about in baseball, a hitter that's slugging or not slumping, right? What do they go do? They go in the batting cage. They hit off a tee.
Yeah.
They don't go and just go straight up to the next at bat and like, okay, I'm going to wait for a curveball and then I'm going to smash it out of the park. It's like, no, I need to go back to the fundamentals and making solid contact, making sure my weight's distributed right, making sure I have my, my hips go, everything else. That's where they start. And that's one of the things that I think as you go through, and if you're a rep and you're struggling, and especially in this economy, like your mind's all over the place. What worked a year ago is not even working now.
Right.
So you got to go back to the basics of selling.
And there's to go back on that analogy, right? There's the feel of it, but then also what are you doing to inspect it, right? That's where like video analysis comes into play.
Totally.
It's the very same thing for sales. If you're not going back and listening to your recordings, figuring out where you could have, asked a deeper question, been more curious, search for the no, whatever it may be, then you're doing yourself a disservice. And if you were successful at one point and you're struggling, if you're not going back and listening to those calls and understanding where you could have made a course correction, then you're going to continue to struggle.
Is it the craziest idea to go and do that self-reflection?
No.
No.
See, you search for the no, you got it.
See?
Bingo. Good job.
All right.
That was the sound effect.
Yeah, the glass breaking.
The
H,
glass
I guess.
H it is. Okay. What's your approach as you coach and train more junior team members? What is your internal North Star as a leader?
That was a long question. I need to read it.
It's 2 questions, actually.
Oh, it's 2 questions. This is where my ADD comes in, ADHD. What's your, scare tactics? No, I'm just kidding. No, it's actually an interesting one because I think that it's a little bit too of when you hire junior or newer sellers, I want to say junior, newer sellers, right? That come from lead gen or their first fresh college grads or making a career change, whatever that may be. Coming into the office is one of the biggest things that can help a rep. Because it's not so much saying, oh, I have to go into the office from 8 to 5. It's about the rapport you build with your other sellers. It's about listening. Like, you remember this when we were in our old office. I would take every call from my desk when I was with a customer on a demo because there's so much that you can learn and hear, right? You may be experiencing something, but you're off in a conference room taking a call with a customer and no one else is on the sales floor listening to your call because you're away in the conference room. They can't give you that feedback. And it also makes me aware of how I'm speaking to customers, right? Because then back when I was a seller and I did this, my boss, hey, you position this way, you may want to think about it that way. One of the best advices I got was a crutch word, right? Everybody has it. I would say, well, I'm thinking here, I'm not prepared. It's kind of like this. And my boss said, it's not kind of like anything. It's either it is or it isn't. So I think that there's that notion that can really, really, really help a seller progress quickly. It's just the learning element, being around others that do it and listening to it.
I think the best way too on the crutch word piece, not to interrupt you, but I did, is to actually talk about it, right? This is your crutch word. This is what you keep going back to. Once you realize that that's what it is, you realize how often you're saying it and you can then correct it.
Well, you're talking about watching tape, right? So if you watch tape with your rep and you call out like, hey, this is your crutch word, let's count how many times you use it. I think it raises a lot of eyebrows. Yeah, you dawns on me. I was trying to figure out what that saying was.
Yeah, and then the internal North Star as a leader. I just want people to make money.
Mm-hmm.
Like if a joke, you can be a jerk 98% of the time, but if you're a leader that can get them to, W-2 more than they did last year, that's how you build a rapport. That's the biggest thing, right? Being in sales, it's not about the trophies that you win for being rep of the quarter. It's about, all right, I can go buy what I want to buy now. I can go make the kind of money I want to make and live a certain lifestyle. And that's really what tapping into a good seller, right? A junior seller that comes on or a seller that you have on your team where they're fine with their base salary. It's like, well, why are you in sales? Like there's so much stress that happens to work for a base salary. Like, why would you do that to yourself?
Yeah. It's rewarding to see someone, especially a young seller, buy their first house, put in a pool, all that kind of good stuff. It's exciting.
Yeah. I know you get a lot of gratification out of that. You told me that in the past, right? Watching people go through milestones, have kids, buy houses, be able to not be worried about when I've got a big thing that just happened, I got to buy a car and they're not stressed about that. I'm sure that helps a lot, right?
By the way, people having babies is a sign of a strong economy. We've had, feels like more people going on maternity and paternity leave lately. So let's be
maybe things will turn around.
Yeah. So paternity leave, huh? Cool. That's the third director. There's something going on in the water here. That's the third director in the
Xactly water. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I hope not.
Good thing I'm drinking coffee.
Yeah. But no, I think it's to your point, especially when you build a sales team that has tenure at a company, it's not turning over year after year. I remember when you started, you were driving the Mini Cooper that had Arnold Schwarzenegger on the back.
Yeah. Still got it.
Yeah, you still got it. But
still
it's
some laughs.
But it's one of those things where you see people they're advancing their lives and you're helping them along the way. It's not like I try not to take credit for any time a seller makes a sale, right? I was only brought in at X amount of point, but it's the things that go into place, like our great GSP team. What kind of training are we doing? It's our lead gen team going in. What kind of deals are they going? How much effort are they putting in? It is a team effort along the way of marketing, PR, all those efforts that go into that sale. So for me, that's one of the key North Stars is giving credit, making sure people are making money. People are making money. Everybody's happy.
Yeah,
Totally.
well, you get some of those junior sellers too who are able to be celebrated at the end of the year. You send them to P Club, like changes people's life, gives them a new perspective on like, hey, this is a way to travel. So I think it'd be a pretty cool thing to do, right?
Yeah. I did hear a rumor where P Club's going to be next year. I won't announce it here, but
no, you don't take his thunder.
No,
that'd be a bad idea.
Because then he'll uninvite me. But looking at the chat, we have no other question. Anything you guys want
to? Is a hot dog a sandwich? I know you love this question, so I had to ask.
Why? You think that's your okay?
Yes,
it look like I love hot dogs or something?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I
think it is.
You think it is?
I think anytime you have bun, meat, it's a sandwich.
It doesn't matter which order, vertical, horizontal.
I think we talked about if you've got it this way and you rotate it this way, then.
But if the bun's attached and it's one piece, is that still a sandwich, or does it have to detach?
Oftentimes, my hot dog bun
you guys ever
split down the middle anyway.
Do you guys ever watch Billy Madison?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Do you remember what happens after
shampoo or conditioner?
No,
is that what we're trying to figure out?
At the end of the speech, what the principal says? We are all a little bit dumber having to listen to this conversation right now. And with that, tune in September for episode 8. We're going to be tying it around Dreamforce. Our CEO's coming out with a book, The Unicorn Fallacy. Go to our website. It's on there. If you ping any one of us via LinkedIn asking for a copy, we'll try to get that signed and personalized for you.
Very cool.
We have a very cool speaker potentially lined up next time. Stay tuned for that. Internet sensation, just throwing that out there. But yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.